Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Microphone check. For the persons who are on the outside, I'd like to take the opportunity now to invite you to come on the inside so we can begin. So for all of you on the outside, we have chairs on the inside. We're inviting you to come out and sit. Thank you. The Ministry of Local Government and Community Development, in collaboration with the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, presents Disaster Preparedness Town Hall Meeting with the Honorable Minister Desmond McKenzie, CD, MP, JP, Minister of Local Government and Community Development, and the Honorable Matthew Samuda, Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, responsible for water, environment, climate change, and the blue and green economy. He's on his way here. And we are here today at the Errol Flynn Marina, Port Antonio, Portland, today, Thursday, May 9, 2024, to start the Town Hall meeting. I'm Delmaris White, and I'm your Master of Ceremony for this session. At this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Rowan Hill. He is the Deputy Superintendent in the Portland MC, and he'll start off with prayers. Thank you.
Shall we pray? Eternal God, our Father and King, we give you thanks for life and the abundance thereof. We give you thanks for leaders of society. We give you thanks, Lord God, for the people that we serve. And as we are here this evening, dear God, to discuss matters concerning our parish and by extension our country, I pray, dear God, that you guide the discussions. I pray that you inspire the response. In your name I pray. Amen.
We now invite Mayor Paul Thompson, Mayor of Port Antonio, to begin the welcome.
Let me acknowledge the presence of our Minister, Honorable Desmond McKenzie, Minister of Local Government and Community Development, and his team from the Ministry of Local Government, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. It is indeed a pleasure to welcome you all this evening to this function, and I am particularly pleased to be here this afternoon, and I congratulate Minister McKenzie, the Ministry of Local Government and Community Development, along with the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, for hosting this very important event. As we all know, awareness. In doing so, we will be able to minimize in some ways, regardless of how small they may be, the effects of such devastating phenomena. I am confident that this function will not only strengthen the resolve of Portlanders to increase their awareness about hurricanes and other disasters, but will also heighten their determination to play the role in the disaster preparedness effort. I wish for you all a very successful evening in deliberation. I thank you all.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Representing Mrs. Anne-Marie Vaz, MP, Member of Parliament for East Portland, is Ms. Shanique Green, and Mrs. Vaz has extended her apologies. She's not feeling well. Make her welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. I must again apologize on behalf of Mrs. Vaz. Due to circumstances beyond her control, she wasn't able to make it tonight. However, she has sent her greetings, and I will read it for her on her behalf. Minister McKenzie, Mayor Paul Thompson, councillors, all other distinguished guests, and most importantly, my East Portland family, good evening. It is with great pleasure and gratitude that I welcome you all to this pivotal town hall meeting dedicated to disaster prevention and preparedness. I extend my sincere appreciation to Minister McKenzie and Minister Samuda for their tireless efforts in organizing this gathering, demonstrating their unwavering commitment to the safety and well-being of our community. Their leadership and dedication serves as an inspiration to us all as we come together to address the critical issue of disaster resilience. As we gather here today, we are reminded of the importance of collaboration and proactive planning in mitigating the impacts of potential disasters on our community. From natural calamities to unforeseen emergencies, the challenges we face requires a united front and comprehensive approach to preparedness. Throughout this meeting, let us engage in thoughtful discussion, share insights, and exchange ideas on how best to enhance our disaster preparedness efforts. By working together, pooling our knowledge and resources, we can ensure that our communities is not only ready to face adversities, but also resilient enough to bounce back stronger in its aftermath. I urge each and every one of you to actively participate in today's discussions, as your inputs and contributions are invaluable in shaping our collective response to potential threats. Together, let us reaffirm our commitment to building a safer, more resilient future for ourselves and generations to come. Thank you all for your presence here today, and let us embark on this journey towards disaster preparedness with determination, unity, and hope. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Green. At this time, we're going to take the presentations from the entities. And first up, we have the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, Mrs. Anna Tucker Abrams, to make her presentation.
Most Honorable Desmond McKenzie, Mayor, His Worship Paul Thompson, Representative Shanique Green, residents of Portland, welcome and good evening. Now, for the ODPEM, we have two presentations. I'll be sharing with you some inputs on flooding and landslide, and my colleague will take you through the earthquake hazard. I'm asking that the slides go to slide 1 for the presentation. not working. Okay. Thank you. Now, as a general background, for those who may not know, this parish has about 80,000 persons. And of that population, 20,000 are under 15 years old, and approximately 7,361 are elderly population. And of course, within that number, you also have persons with disabilities. Now, in looking at the overall vulnerability of the parish, there are 45 communities in Portland. And of this number, 34 of those communities are prone to either flooding, landslides, or even wind damage. And where wind damage is concerned in this parish is a very extensive damage we're experiencing in Portland. So we're going to take you through that. So just looking generally as an overview for the parish, you're seeing where most of your communities are hazard prone. Now, in looking at your assets, now first and foremost, the people are the greatest assets of the parish, but there are other critical assets at risk. You have your houses, some of which are located in flood-prone areas and landslide-prone areas. You have your roadways, main roadways that connect to other parishes that are also prone to flooding. You also have your tourist facilities and attractions, and your primary sector within this parish is agriculture. So that's a very highly sensitive sector that is greatly impacted by hydrometeorological events like rainfall, hurricanes, tropical storms. And you also have your riverine systems that provide your domestic water supply. So rivers like the Rio Grande, the Swift River, those tributaries are also prone to flooding neighboring communities and those things. So those are main assets. On the screen, you're seeing the two key highlights here. You're seeing Somerset Falls. As you know, given the recent drought impacts, you've had some impact to that major attraction within the parish. And this is a phenomenon that has not occurred in Portland for many years. So this has brought some attention to how the severity of water shortage or water resource assets in the parish is being affected. And as we know, Portland is known as a water parish, right? Because of you basically experience a lot of rainfall. So in looking at the changes in the environment within the parish, it shows that there's a growing increase in terms of your risk to your assets. Now, when look at, next slide, please. Pointer's not working. Now, the map you're seeing on the screen shows you the river and susceptibility across the island of Jamaica. And where you're seeing the circle, that's the parish of Portland. So as you can see, Portland is really a wet parish. It has many rivers and small stream tributaries that contribute to flooding within the parish. Another vulnerable hazard to the parish is landslide. Next slide, please. Pointer's not working. Is your landslide susceptibility. Now, the areas in red that you're seeing on the map are the areas that are most prone to landslide. So the southern sections of Portland is where you're highly vulnerable to landslides. And as you approach the coast, that's the area where you're highly susceptible to flooding in low-lying areas. Moving on. Previous slide. Now, giving you a depiction of the distribution of communities within the parish that are prone to flooding and landslide, you have 13 communities that repeatedly receive flood impacts over the years, and you have 10 communities that receive landslide impacts, and you know a few of them. So you have Spring Garden, Buff Bay, Port Antonio, Long Bay, Hope Bay, Orange Bay. All the coastal areas mainly are prone to flooding, and in the hilly interior of the parish, you have areas like Swift River, you have Nonsuch, Ginger, Rock Hall. Those areas have experienced landslide impacts. And this data has been captured over from the period 2004 to 2020. What am I doing wrong? Next. Now, I'm going to highlight for you some of the recent impacts. In looking at 2022, we have Tropical Storm Ian, September 25th to 26th, and this impact was mainly wind damage in the parish. So it resulted in a lot of down power lines and fallen trees which blocked roadways across the parish. Next. Looking at 2023, November 16 to 18, the photo here is depicting flooding to roads. And this is pretty common when there's heavy rainfall in the parish. So it's clear to see to the ODPEM that there's a drainage issue in the parish, and it's mainly because of blocked drains in key areas, especially in the congested area of Port Antonio. Next slide, please. Now, in looking at the most recent impacts of 2024, on May 1, there was a trough in the Central Caribbean that resulted in extensive flooding to some parishes, and Portland received most of the impacts for this event. And I've highlighted here some of the impacted areas, communities like Tranquility, Bangor Ridge, Chelsea, Bloomfield, Swift River, Balcarres, Belvedere, Claverty Road, and Spring Gardens were the primary areas of impact, and those impacts included soil erosion, landslides, collapsed houses from landslides, and also wind damage. You had downed power lines, fallen trees, blocked roadways by both landslides and flooding. You also had coconut trees. There was a situation in Belvedere where the coconut tree actually destroyed an entire house. And the next slide is depicting those images. So here you're seeing some photo depictions of some of the recent damages that occurred in May. So what you're seeing is that Portland is increasingly susceptible to flooding and landslide risk. The risk has always been there, but what we're seeing is an increase in the frequency and severity of the impacts across the parish. Next slide. That's some more damage here. You're seeing a landslide here on Claverty Road in Spring Garden. So what we are seeing across the parish is that when landslides occur, they tend to block the main road. They're occurring along those main arteries that people need to traverse to head where they're going. And this kind of impact results in persons losing time. Persons can't go to school. Some persons can't go to work. So the impacts, though they may seem minor, the long-term effects of these impacts, if they're not treated with, will continue to affect the residents of Portland. And this has the attention of the ODPEM, and we're looking to see where we can improve in the disaster risk reduction measures. And my last slide here is where I'll just share with you some disaster risk reduction measures that we will continue to employ in the parish. So one is the community hazard mapping and plan development process. This is where we work closely with communities to develop community disaster risk management plans. These plans outline the hazards that the community is prone to, and it also outlines the mitigation measures or preventative measures that need to be put in place. And these decisions are made jointly with the community, where residents will inform us and other agencies on what the mitigation measures should be to alleviate some of the risk to their community. So it's a collaborative approach in reducing that risk. We also continue to review development applications. So you know in Portland, you also have tourist attractions along your coastline. A lot of these attractions lead to other new developments, and these are large hotel developments. So those applications come into the ODPEM where they're reviewed to expose the flooding and landslide risk to those properties. Drain cleaning and maintenance is another area that we must continue and be more stringent with, especially in the town of Port Antonio, where something as simple as a drain being blocked by garbage is leading to extensive flooding in the town. So these are measures that are inside your control. And what we're encouraging you to do is to not wait until the flooding occurs to be reactive to the impact, but to have a more proactive approach where the drains are clean ahead of the rains. We know the rainy season, and when the Met Office comes, they will give you that period. We know June to November is hurricane season. So if we ensure that the drains are clean within those time frames, it reduces your flood risk and other exposure. Now, in looking at your landslide problem, within the parish of Portland, as the landslide susceptibility map showed, most of your slopes are steep slopes. And when farmers are deforesting these hillsides, and there's not much plant, or what the crops they put are not enough to hold the soil, what will happen is it will result in landslides. So while you must do this to maintain your livelihood, we're also encouraging you to reforest some areas. Have a system where you're replanting trees on a regular basis to maintain slope stabilization in these areas. And these are some low-cost initiatives that can be carried out in the parish. You have the role of your parish disaster coordinator. You have the support of ODPEM. You have the support of the forestry department and other agencies that are willing to partner with you to ensure that your reforestation strategy is robust. We also encourage ongoing public education and awareness to promote behavior change. So while we will come at forums like this, in settings like this, and tell you what you need to do, it's a personal responsibility at the household level to ensure that we are also carrying out these actions. So it becomes a natural behavior in our practice. So as part of our public education and awareness program, we will continue to teach you the different strategies for disaster risk reduction and encourage you to tell us what your needs are in terms of disaster. So I'll now move on to my colleague who will now share in more in-depth for you the earthquake hazard, especially the one that occurred last year in October. So I now welcome Mrs. Anthony Kirkland Richardson from the ODPEM. Thank you.
All right, Honorable Desmond McKenzie, His Worship, the Mayor Paul Thompson, Mayor of Port Antonio. Oh, thank you. Representative Ms. Shanique Green, on behalf of Mrs. Anne-Marie Vaz, Member of Parliament, other distinguished guests of the panel, and residents of Port Antonio, of Portland, good evening. And good evening, Mr. Matthew Samuda. All right, so I will be taking you through what earthquake is, understanding an earthquake, and how you can prepare and be safe or help to mitigate the impacts from an earthquake. An earthquake is, a shaking of the ground caused by a sudden movement or breaking along plates within our Earth's surface, right? So, of course, we are above our tectonic plates, and they're either converging, which they're coming together, and they're, pushing the land upwards. So our beautiful, well, it's dark out now, but our beautiful hills of Portland, display the upliftment of our land from our convergence. We have plates that diverge or move away from each other, and so, form volcanic islands or build up additional land. And we also have our tectonic plates that move across each other, which are called transform plates. And of course, that's where we feel a lot of our earthquake activity in the Caribbean. So what makes us, hold on. All right, so if you can follow along the slide. Just to give you a little terminology of what you feel on the ground, right? So when we say our epicenter, the epicenter of the earthquake is the surface on the ground that is directly above where the seismic rupture begins. So, of course, there is friction under our Earth's surface, and of course, that creates that jolt within our Earth's surface, and we feel that shaking on the land. And the focus is where it's below the ground, and of course, faults run right through our island, the main one being the Plantain Garden Fault that runs through our Blue Mountain Block. And so right throughout the year, we're feeling numerous earthquake activity. Some of them are below magnitude 2, magnitude 3, and so some of them go unfelt, but we feel at least, up to 300 for the year. And so, well, they're recorded or captured 300 earthquake activities throughout the year, but a small number of that is felt by our residents across the island. So why is our parish at risk, right? And as I mentioned, it's because one of the reasons our location on the Caribbean plate. It is interacting with the other plates around us, our Cocos plate, our Nazca plate, our North American plate, South American plates. And of course, as I mentioned, the type of movement across these plates gives us or generates that energy that we call the earthquake. If you can look on the screen, we are seeing, those red dots, and that red dots is showing the number of earthquake activity that has been recorded by our seismographs at the earthquake unit. And you can see in the northeastern region of the island, that's where our beautiful parish of Portland is. A lot of the earthquake activity is happening there. The Plantain Garden Fault that we share with Haiti, and it runs right through our Blue Mountain Block and gives us that tremors right throughout the year. Also, as my colleague presented earlier, the landslide susceptibility map, which shows areas within Portland that are super vulnerable to our landslides. And of course, not only rainfall, heavy rainfall and floods can trigger landslides, but also our earthquakes. And so it breaks that the ground loose, or the geology of our land. Because of the tectonic uplift, the rocks become weathered and becomes, soft and brittle over time, and so becomes susceptible to our landslides. This is a look at the past. A lot of the seismic activity that has happened in our country. The map on the right shows the number of seismic activity that has happened between 2008 to 2018, and the colors signify the magnitude of the earthquakes. And of course, you're seeing the majority of that activity happening within that Portland belt in the Blue Mountain block. 2020, we had 209 earthquake activity, and of course, out of that, 18 were felt. In 2021, we had 153 activity that has been picked up on our seismographs and felt 7. And if we get down to 20, there has been an increase in reporting of the activity that has been felt throughout the parishes, right? So maybe in the past there has been more felt activity, but because of technology or the lack of or limited amount of technology, that has not been reaching our earthquake unit to put on record, right? Some other major activities or earthquake events that has happened to make note of is the one that happened last week. Can you just give a raise of hand if you felt the one last week on May 1st? Right. And so that one originated just 5 kilometers south of the Buff Bay region. It was a magnitude of 4.2. And of course, once you start getting above the 4.2 magnitude, you start, feeling that little tremor within your house. You're seeing the figurines shaking and so on. Another event was last year, Monday, October 30. That happened around 10:57 a.m. And another one that happened in 2020, magnitude 7.7, and that one actually occurred northwest of Lucy, Hanover, but some persons even felt it all the way in Portland and even experienced damages. So you can see it can happen at any time, anywhere. You can be anywhere, and so you have to put in the necessary precaution measures to keep yourself safe and keep your assets safe. So this shows some of the damages that were sustained from the 5.6 magnitude earthquake that happened last year, October 30. And again, this one originated just south of the Buff Bay region, just highlighting the seismic, the heights of the seismic activity that's happening here in the region. Clavity experienced residential structural failures or damages. There was structural damage to the Buff Bay Primary School. The Buff Bay Tax Office experienced structural damages and also cracks to walls in Windsor and some other areas that probably weren't reported. So we do encourage you to report these activities to our agencies, especially the Earthquake Unit, ODPEM, and the Municipal Cooperation. Here are some of the other damages that were experienced right across the island. So it originated in Portland, but of course it was felt in St. Andrew. A lot of our supermarkets had damage to our goods. Landslide near a bridge in Hagley Gap, St. Thomas. And of course, these are not cheap damages, right? So we want to ensure, especially for the image on the right, we are building our structures to withstand certain magnitudes of earthquake. Right? All right, so let's get into some of the preparedness strategies on how you can keep your family safe, your community safe, and your home safe. So ensure that you have a family emergency plan, right? Ensure that the communication channels are, are standard. Your children have your number. They have their phones on them and charged at all times so that you can keep in contact. Ensure that you know the meeting points in case of an earthquake. You know where to go. And if you're in separate places, you know that that is the meeting point. Ensure that you have essential supplies like your earthquake safety kit, including food, water, first aid, because of course additional hazards, the water lines can be disrupted. For community preparedness, ensure that you come together and organize community emergency response teams with responsibilities, and of course you ensure that you exercise a lot of your community drills to ensure that once the earthquake comes on, you know exactly what to do. And consider your vulnerable population, your young children, your elderly, and your persons with disabilities. And in your homes, secure your large equipments, your televisions, wardrobe, whatnots, to the wall so that they don't topple over. In the immediate phase of an earthquake, stay calm. Most of the injuries and the damages happen when you are not calm and you start to panic. Follow the drop, cover, and hold technique and hold on to something sturdy, a sturdy table, under the bed, and then once that shaking stops, then you exit and follow your evacuation route to safety and to your assembly point. Avoid trampling on each other, so safely move within your evacuation route. Don't use elevators because the service can be disrupted as well. And check for injuries and alert the medical staff to ensure that first aid is given immediately. In our response and recovery, ensure that safety inspections are done. Practice safe cleanup practices, because once you don't take the necessary precautions, additional injuries can come into play when you don't take the necessary time to clear the debris. And of course, know the direct numbers for your fire brigade, the police, your PDC, your parish disaster coordinator, Ms. Denise Lewis, who is fabulous, and helping to ensure Portland is a safe parish. And of course, ODPEM. So we want to move to resilience, right? Avoid building in the landslide-prone areas. And if you want additional information, contact our earthquake unit to provide additional information as to where those high-risk landslide areas are. Attend workshops and seminars and even town hall meetings like this that share the information. On the right, you see that we were here in January, just January of this year, on an earthquake awareness roadshow, sharing information about the earthquake hazard and sharing safety tips. Stay updated on the local development orders, planning orders, and ensure that you have building safer structures that's getting to your national building code. And of course, all right. And my last message is to just say that building resilience against earthquakes and other hazards is everyone's responsibility. So just ensure that you are taking your personal action towards safety against earthquake and other hazards. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Team ODPEM. Give them another round of applause. Let me take the time to acknowledge the Honorable Matthew Samuda. Thank you for joining us. And at this time, I'm moving into the presentation from the Jamaica Public Service Company. Mr. Ryan Jarrett will make the presentation. We apologize for the National Solid Waste Management Authority, so we're moving into the JPS presentation. Thank you. So we have a rep from Solid Waste who will take questions, so we'll not have a presentation. Yes? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Honorable Desmond McKenzie, Honorable Matthew Samuda, esteemed guests, visitors, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is Ryan Jarrett. I am currently the operations manager for Portland, St. Mary, and St. Thomas. My main role is maintenance, operations maintenance, and that is basically responsible for keeping the lights on. Should there be an issue where we have an outage, for whatever reason, sometimes we have force outages, the aim and my responsibility is to have it back up and running in the shortest time possible in a safe way so we can keep the power going. I unfortunately don't have a presentation, but I want to basically put some points forward and take a few questions if there is. Okay, questions later. So I want to talk about JPS and its readiness for disasters, especially the beginning of the hurricane season that is due to start in a couple weeks. So we at JPS, we have a very robust disaster response system. We have a central emergency operating center that operates from Kingston, and within each parish there is an emergency operation unit or a center. These are manned, well, for the three, for Portland, St. Thomas, and St. Mary, I have operations coordinators that would basically manage the day-to-day underground functions of what takes place within the parishes. So we have recently and continued to have some simulation. So we have a system that we test periodically, more rigidly when it comes down to the hurricane season. That is a system that, should the eventuality of a hurricane or a major disaster occur, we have a system and persons in place manning that system to basically keep the public safe, keep the power on if it's supposed to be on. If it is at a state where the power needs to be turned off, we turn it off, do our assessments after an all clear is given. After the all clear is given, then we do some assessments and try to restore power as quick as possible and in a safe manner. One of the main activities that we undertake is vegetation clearance. The least amount of vegetation we have next to our power lines is the minimal the damages will be to the infrastructure, to the assets. So I'm not sure if, well, many persons here would have seen persons within your communities cutting down trees that are near the power line, removing vegetation. The system is designed that once the vegetation comes in contact with the power lines, it creates an outage for protection purposes. The voltage, the average voltage running through the lines, the top lines that you see on the street, is 24,000 volts. Now, that in itself is a hazard, so we try as best as possible to keep it away from contacting anything that is close to ground. We have embarked on an island-wide activity to basically get the assets and the structure performing optimally. As a result of that, we have had a major outage in Portland where over 200 persons participated in that outage. And the aim is to basically get the structure back to performing optimally, removing all the hazards and ensuring that the lights stay on. We want to use this opportunity as it relates to safety. And this is where everyone here has a responsibility to teach and educate your family members, kids especially, that in the eventuality of a storm and there are down power lines, never, ever touch the lines. We always assume that there's power flowing through it. A lot of persons have got themselves injured, and even to the extreme of having some fatalities by persons seeing wires, what we refer to as conductors on the ground, and trying to remove them for clearing the roadway. That is a no-no. So we ask that you educate your family members, your children especially, to just stay inside or stay away from the wires. Just wait until personnel from GPS visit the area and do the removal of the lines, removal of the poles, and advise persons that it is safe to move around. There is some situations where we have trees. Sometimes it's on private property, but they grow to a size that poses a hazard to the power lines. We ask that persons who have this situation or identify the situation do not attempt to cut the trees yourself. Contact GPS. If it is our responsibility, we'll cut it. If it is not, and we can assist, we will. However, if we can't, we can turn the power off to your premises and you can do the cutting. Our resident base customers are about 700,000 currently. And what we do is basically we have a system, and the system, it runs parallel to what is existing now. So for example, the main power goes, we have backup, as I had mentioned before, to all of these centers, the EOU, Emergency Operating Centers and units. So we have power running in the background while we do our restoration to the main grid. Again, we ask that we put safety first, and we crave your patience. Sometimes a lot of persons get impatient when there's a power outage of a magnitude that is created from an hurricane. So we just ask for patience as the teams go around, do their assessment, and try their best to restore the power safely, so the persons restoring the power and the persons receiving the power can get it in a safe manner. Thank you.
Anna Fakuri. We'll now take the representative from the National Solid Waste Management Authority, Ms. Anna Fakuri. Yeah? Make her feel welcome, please. Thank you.
Honorable Minister McKenzie, Minister Samuda, His Worship the Mayor Thompson, Councillor Green, other councillors present, other stakeholders, and residents of this beautiful parish, Portland. Good evening to all of you. I'm ensuring to say that beautiful parish, Portland, because even just sitting here and looking at your waters and just driving here, it is such an amazing experience. You have an incredible parish here. So I'm hearing words like responsibility, ownership. I want to tell you that NSWMA is not just about garbage trucks. It's not just about picking up your garbage on time. Yeah, it is important, and yes, we have made great strides through the assistance and the support of the Honorable Minister sitting here to my right, that we have lots more trucks. Currently, we have 9 trucks rolling in and around the parish of Portland. We will actually be getting some more trucks, possibly within another 6 weeks, so we should be able to afford Portland some tipper trucks. What will that do for our collections? We will now be able to schedule monthly collections of bulky waste. This is an extremely important activity. But I have to say that through the Office of the Prime Minister, between the months of October up to January of this year, October 2023 to January 2024, there were several projects right through Jamaica taking up bulky waste items. These items are the ones that create a nuisance on our roadways. It creates dangers to you, your household, your family. But I want to use my little time here to really impress upon all of us here that solid waste management must become a household name. It must become a household activity. Waste separation is not just something that we talk about because it sounds pretty. Each of us in our own independent right and space have to play our part in reducing the waste that we're producing at the source, in our homes, how we manage the waste up to the time of collection, what we put out for collection. We have to retrain the way we think about managing the garbage that we are producing. It's not just to throw it outside for the garbage truck to come, or what happens a lot in this beautiful parish is throwing it down the gully. That is something that creates major flooding. It damages your property. It poses danger to your family. So I'm asking that we all take the time, own the waste that we are producing, and together we find ways to manage it, to reduce ill effects of that. Remember the slogan of NSWMA, for those who don't know it, let me tell you, Jamaica's beauty is our duty. So with this beautiful audience in front of me, I love to do this. Can I hear you say that? Jamaica's beauty is? Exactly right. We're here to support you. I welcome opportunities like this. We go into the schools because you know that we have to really work on the children because they are the generations coming. They are the change. We are trying it kind of hard to bend the older trees, but we must try to set examples, lead by examples. I know for the garbage collection, I don't expect a lot of problems from this gathering tonight because we have greatly improved, but there is always room for improvement. But as we approach the 1st of June, as we are here to discuss disaster mitigation, I want to say this is not just a hurricane season activity. I would love to see a Jamaica with a different lifestyle, a different way of managing the waste that we produce. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'm owning it also. Jamaica's beauty is our duty, right? Okay, so we now call on Peter Clark, Water Resources Authority, to make his presentation.
Good evening. Honorable Minister Desmond McKenzie, Minister of Local Government and Community Development, Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, Minister Samuda, His Worship, the Mayor, Mayor Thompson. I didn't know she was councillor, but Ms. Shanique Green, representing Ms. Anne-Marie Vaz, other colleagues from all agencies and councillors, ladies and gentlemen, especially because this meeting is for you, a very pleasant good evening. I'm from the Water Resources Authority, and the situation with water is sometimes you have too much, and sometimes you don't have enough. The fact is that the management of water resources is not just the government's responsibility. Yes, it's largely the Ministry of Economic Growth and it's largely the Ministry of Local Government, but there are others, the NGOs and everybody. And we all have to plan together. We all have to strategize together. We all have to mitigate together. The authority, we are entitled under the law to regulate, to allocate, to conserve, and to manage water. So we have a licensing regulation system. We have water resource engineers. We have resource monitors who are going out. We have people who are doing data collection. We have people who are doing resource planning, people who are doing investigation, people who are doing environmental quality and assurance, all of these things. And of course, the support services. And then coming out of this, we produce one of our most important documents, the National Water Resources Master Plan. We also have to do raw water quality control. If you want to drill a well, you're going to be talking to us. If you want to access water from a river and it's not for your domestic purposes but for any commercial purposes, you have to talk to us so that the licenses can be sorted out. So our role in sustainable development is all about trying to maintain good water quality and quantity of water. And one of the important things in all of that is that we recognize that some people do have what we call riparian rights, which is the right to access that water. All right? But in accessing the water, we all have to be careful, because if you over-exploit the resource, things can happen. If you over-exploit your groundwater, you can actually pull seawater in, what we call saline up coning, if you pump a well too hard. And for the surface water, if you over-exploit it, you can deplete the resource so that somebody downstream doesn't have water. And then those people downstream have serious problems, economic losses, because they were expecting water to come to them, and it's been diverted away or something like that. So we monitor across the island. A lot of these points that you're seeing are where we monitor for rivers and surface waters. And also we monitor the groundwater, the wells. And you can see that there are actually more monitoring is going on for wells than surface water, because there are so much more points where that is taken from. Not advancing. Okay. With regards to Portland now, your two main rivers really that are available to you are the Rio Grande, and we monitor it at Alligator Church. And what we look at is that on the average, that river at any time, usually gives you at least 35.3 million gallons per day. In January of this year, it was yielding 134 million gallons. Okay? In January of last year, same time last year, it was only giving 37.2. So this tells you, this confirms that last year, Portland especially was going through a very significant drought and dry period. All right? And February of this year, it fell from 134 to 50. Roughly almost a third. Okay? And in February of last year, it was just about 29.130. So yes, it's still doing better than last year, but you can see that there has been a strong effect of what has been happening with the lack of rainfall here in Portland in the last month, in the last 6 or so weeks. All right, and you're just now recovering with a little rain last week. And it's a similar situation when you look at the Buff Bay River. All right. So we have to always collect this data, because this data helps us to make decisions, and it helps us to make projections. So when we look at it, for instance, if you look over on the Portland side, you can see that the rivers over there, you can see the green triangles, which signify that essentially the rivers have been pretty normal, because they've certainly exceeded that average flow of, say, 35. All right? And they have remained that way in December and January. And then, of course, we can use this and reproduce bulletins. But it's more than just the river and all of that, because the fact is that all of our rivers, all the water in our rivers was once rainfall. So as much as Rio Grande is there and it's flowing, and it looked like it can't stop flowing, and it's a heavy amount of water, it was all rain. And it was all rain that fell in the mountains and then has soaked into the rocks and soil in the mountains, and is slowly coming out to form the river continuously. So that shows you how much rain falls when it rains. Because the Rio Grande is, that's the name. It's one of our bigger rivers. Same thing with Swift River, Spanish River, Pencar River, Drivers River, all of them. Okay? It was all once rainfall. But it's getting hotter. Without a doubt, it's getting hotter. The picture on the right, note the date, May 7th. Today's the 9th. So this is 2 days ago. Coming out of France, that April, across the globe, smashed the records for heat. For any other April ever. We're talking about April. Look at that date. That's yesterday, May 8th, coming out of Uruguay. We're in Latin America, and we are considered part of Latin America. It's Latin America and the Caribbean. That 2023 was a year of record climatic hazards. All right? Both a warm year and also a lot of rain. Mexico right now is having a big problem with electricity because it's not raining. because it's hot, and everybody's drawing on AC, and then the power company can't keep up, all right? And at the same time, what we're seeing also is that over the years, the rainfall is decreasing. And my friend Rohan Brown from Met's office may speak some more on that. So I won't dwell on this too much, just to show you that that black line is your average, and that green line is your most recent situation. And you can see that the rain on the average is much lower than your normal average, all right? And coupled with that is sea level rise, because the hotter it is, the more the sea, the more, when you boil water, it expands. When you heat water, it expands. So in the same way, when the sun heats the sea, it expands. And when it expands, it has nowhere to go but up. So it rises. And then it becomes a problem because it affects your groundwater and it affects, all of these other things. So coming out of that, we have to plan. And I spoke about the Water Resources Master Plan. So we have to start planning to mitigate. So for instance, what you're looking at here at the bottom is just the draft of a project, a scheme project, to basically irrigate the breadbasket of Jamaica, which is down in St. Elizabeth, all right, taking water from the Black River. And this is a plan that we're looking at earnestly, and we're hoping that, with the help of the minister, that all of it is going to come together. But we have to start doing these kind of big plans to mitigate against climate change, because the next slide is going to knock your socks off. This one. This is a projection of our water situation between 2019 and 2080. And you can see that between changing patterns in rainfall, increasing heat, what it means is that over time, this country is going to be more and more water stressed, which means that over time, and starting now, we'll have to be putting in what it's going to take to mitigate against that. Because this is data that we've pulled together when we've, monitoring rivers and groundwater for years and years and years. We have decades of data. You put together what you can get out of the climate change division of the University of the West Indies with how heat will change and how temperatures will rise. And when you put it all in a model and you run the computer and you run the model, this is the picture that you get. All right? So, of course, evaporation levels are going to get higher. All right? All of this heat is coming in, evaporation is increasing, and then, it affects your water sources and your water resources. I pulled these numbers together just last week. The Mona Reservoir is a system that I think everybody in Jamaica has heard of. It's roughly 70 acres in size. And if you use an average wind speed of, say, 15 kilometers per hour, an average air temperature of 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and it can get hotter than that, we agree. A humidity of 50%, you get an evaporation rate of 85,000 gallons per hour. That's a lot of water evaporating out of Mona Reservoir. On the average, 500,000 gallons per hour go in. 85 is evaporating and 500,000 is going, which means that over a period of, say, 6 hours, all right, you could have, over a 6-hour period, whatever is going in for that 6-hour period, 17% is evaporating. While over the day, because it's going to get cool and night, it's going to get dark and there'll be no evaporation, over the overall 24-hour period, you'll have an overall 4% evaporation. Now, that's still significant, because 4% evaporation, 85,000 times 6, that's 500 and little bit thousand gallons per day, all right? So it's still a significant amount of water that could have been retained. All right? Now, on the other side, next slide, please. Now, on the other side, right here in Portland, the effect is not necessarily with storage, storage evaporation, but it has happened with your rivers. This is 2019. You may remember that in 2019, Somerset Falls dried up for the better part of 5 months. In 2023, it dried up again for the better part of 2.5 months. All right? And before that, in 2012, it dried up for the better part of 8 months. So depending on the severity of the drought, these things can happen. And it happens largely because the river itself that feeds Somerset Falls, the David River, is a short river. It depends on rain, and if it's not raining, then it's not going to be happening. So the response, of course, has always been nationally that, we'll do trucking where we can, and this has happened. Of course, trucking has its issues, and of course, one of the things is the matter of maintaining health and wellness. So, the matter of water trucking guidelines and so on are important so that we can always deliver good quality water. Next slide. There's rainwater harvesting. Rainwater harvesting catchments are built in schools and so on. And also we recommend detention ponds and all of these. Next slide. Reforestation, we spoke about that already. That has to be a part of our operations going forward. My colleagues from ODPEM spoke about that, and nobody else, is of more concern than the people who have to manage water resources, because these promote our watersheds. Next slide. We have to fast track our current projects, all right? Leaky pipes need to be replaced. Distribution needs to be ongoing. Water treatment plant upgrades needs to continue. Next slide. All right, let's go in. The next slide. One of the things that we have to look at is how we can move water from where it is to where it's needed. And this is happening already across the island. And we have looked at rivers that are favorable for this. And these have been presented, so it's just a matter of doing, developing the projects that can make it happen. But for instance, the Rio Bueno, that can be moved to the south, Wright River, also Lala and Great River. All of these are on the north coast, but they can move into the south, into Clarendon, into St. Andrew, into St. Catherine to help those situations on that level. Thank you. Next slide. Go ahead. Next slide. It's a rainy parish. Portland is supposed to be a rainy parish, and normally you can see from the intensity map that's there that yes, it does get rain, but because the rivers depend on rain, when you don't have rain, your rivers actually react a whole lot more demonstrably than regular and other situations where they have groundwater and so on, because you're depending on rivers largely, and if it's not raining, then that impact becomes immediately greater. Next slide. And then, of course, there's the issue of flooding when you do have it. And for us here in Portland, the two big issues are river flooding and, of course, storm surge. And we'll kind of run through these quickly. These will just be some pictures, different pictures of flooding that's happening and the problems that have happened here in Jamaica. Go on again. Go on again. Wagwater River, just up the road. Go on again. Monique, the lake is risen and it's flooding out. Go on again. Go. So your coastal flooding also becomes an issue, especially for places like Anata Bay over in St. Mary, Buff Bay, here in Port Antonio, Hope Bay, St. Margaret's Bay. All of these townships that are on the coast have a strong susceptibility to coastal flooding when the hurricane is pushing that wall of water in front of it. It's something that we have to be aware of and be ready to move, be ready to have the plan how to move and where to move to be safe, especially in these towns. Thank you. Next slide. So for us at the RRE, we do floodplain maps. We declare flood control areas. We have the flood control master plan, and we have flood warning systems. We have one upcoming for Port Maria, and we have others that are there. Next. Keep going. And then we use these maps to not just help us, but to also direct people like the local government and the municipal corporations on where they can do construction. If you can just run to the end, please. Go again. Yeah, right here. So to close, we just want to say that the fact is that with regards to fresh water, there's more than just reusing and recycling. We have to think about reserving as communities and as individuals. We have to think about as an authority to redirect. In our own use, we have to think of restriction and all of these things. So our fresh water, we have to consider it very important, because at the end of the day, every drop is precious. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clark. I now call Mr. Rowan Brown from the Met Service for his presentation.
The Honorable Minister Desmond McKenzie, Senator the Honorable Matthew Samuda, His Worship the Mayor, Mr. Thompson. Ladies and gentlemen, good evening, good evening, good evening. I must confess that Portland is my favorite getaway. Yes, yes. I may have said that up front because I want to talk to the people where I come to enjoy and relax myself, all right? And I want to talk to you about some important things. I want to talk to you about some numbers. And these numbers relate to the hurricane season and the importance of being prepared. First, I want to talk to you about last year. Now, last year was the fourth most active hurricane season in the records of hurricane, and that compared to 1933. So it was the fourth most active year. And I want to knock and thank God that nothing affect Jamaica, and I'm thankful for that. However, to the end of the season, in November, there was, a little concern because there was an area of low pressure, right, that moved across Jamaica. They called it potential tropical cyclone 22, and that 22 created a little damage. And I just want to tell you the damage it created and come back to you. So it produced heavy rainfall, prolonged rainfall, gusty winds. It affected 10 of 14 parishes, especially southwestern parishes, central and eastern parishes. It also produced rainfall. And when we measure the rainfall, there were 30 stations that were used in the analysis. And all 30 stations in those 2.5 days exceeded their monthly rainfall. So that means that you had a lot of rainfall, right? And it affected Kingston, St. Andrew, Portland, St. Mary, and St. Catherine. You had rock slides, you had fallen trees, you had down power lines, and communities were inundated. Now, if that little system that was not a tropical storm, not a hurricane, but just an area of low pressure that moved across Jamaica and created such damage, can you imagine if it was a tropical storm or a hurricane? We need to be prepared. All right, that's the first point I'm making. The next point I'm making is numbers again. Now, I want you to listen to this point, right? Right across the world, the meteorologists, the climate scientists, they're saying that this year is going to be an active year. And the reasons why they're saying that is, number one, we're currently in an El Nino condition right now. And that condition is going to become neutral in the next couple of weeks. And when you reach to the peak of the hurricane season, you're going to have something that is called La Nina. Now, you said that system weakens the wind shear. And therefore, you have more energy, more convective activity. And storms are easier to form in that sort of condition. That is something that we are concerned about. The next thing, and Peter talked about it, is the heat, the sea surface temperatures. They are above normal for April. So if they're above normal for April, can you imagine June, July, August? So that is cause for concern as a scientist, right? And not only that too, but to about 30 feet below the sea level, that also is warming. And that combination provides the energy or the fuel for the quick development of systems. I want you to Google this, Hurricane Otis. And the word I want you to pay attention is rapid intensification. Now, first time, the system would gradually become a depression, then it gradually becomes a storm, and then it gradually becomes a hurricane. That is not happening anymore. Because of the extreme heat, you have rapid intensification, and over 24 hours, it can go from a Cat 1 hurricane to a Category 5. So can you imagine? Well, let me not say it. But we need to be prepared. We need to be prepared. In Jesus' name, amen. All right. So therefore, I'm closing now. But the prediction, we at the Met Service use the US NOAA climate prediction models, right? And they have not put it out as yet. But other entities like the Colorado State University and the Penn State University, say we're expecting 23 named storms. Now, in a normal season, you should have 14. What are they predicting? 23 and more. So therefore, all the indicators are pointing to an active hurricane season. But the most important number is 1. Say 1. No, man, say 1. The most important number is 1. Because all it takes is the passage of one system near Jamaica, over Jamaica, to create significant damage, the loss of livelihoods, and more importantly, the loss of lives. So my message to you tonight, be prepared. Whether you are a government, whether you're a municipal corporation, whether you're a private sector, whether in your house and your family, be prepared. Look out for the young, look out for the elderly, because all it takes is the passage of 1. Thank you, and have a good night.
Thank you very much, Mr. Brown. At this time, I'm inviting the Honorable Matthew Samuda, Minister without portfolio in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, responsible for water, environment, climate change, and the blue and green economy. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, residents of Portland. I wish to, though protocol has been established, first acknowledge colleague, minister, friend, and mentor in many ways, the Honorable Desmond McKenzie, Minister of Local Government and Community Development. I wish to also acknowledge His Worship the Mayor, colleague and friend, councillor, indeed all councillors here, heads of agency, and thank all who have participated thus far. Disaster. What's a disaster? Usually we think of disasters in the context of something that happens suddenly, something that is catastrophic. We don't usually think of disasters as something that happens over time, something that is a slow onset event. Jamaica is coming out of the throes of a particular disaster now. That is the drought season. You see, we think of disasters as something that is shocking, something that is unexpected, and they are indeed disasters, but we generally don't plan in a particular way for disasters that creep upon us, things that have disastrous impact. And I think that's where I would love to focus this evening, Minister, with your leave. You see, Jamaica is particularly vulnerable. We're vulnerable to climatic events, we're vulnerable to geopolitical shifts, we're vulnerable to, and have been vulnerable in the past, to political shifts. But ultimately, Jamaica is becoming more resilient. But we're becoming more resilient because we have managed our affairs in a particular manner. But what are the risks that we're trying to become resilient to? Well, first, I mentioned climatic events, and certainly the presentation from the Met Service a while ago would have focused on the ones that we generally most contemplate. We've all grown up with hurricane stories. We've all grown up with hurricane experiences. We can all tell you about that one time where in an hour, the rainfall in an afternoon caused particular flooding in a town square. We can all tell you about the time where school had to be put off because there was significant rainfall. We can all think about those times that marked time. But Jamaica is experiencing the back end of the El Nino phenomenon, correct? Now, what that means is that Jamaica has had extremely dry conditions over the last 2.5 years. Now, El Nino is not a normally good time for anyone who is in charge of water provision, but I can tell you it has been particularly challenging over the last 2 years because this time around, because of climate change, it has been extreme. Last year, I came to Portland at around this time of year with Minister Vaz and Minister McKenzie, and we did a tour. We came back and we had a community meeting. And around that time, Peter, you'll recall that in February of 2023, Portland had 18% of its 30-year average rainfall, not 18% below. So it meant that the rainforest of Jamaica was no longer getting any rain. It meant that no matter what water system had been contemplated, had been designed, had been invested in for Portland, nothing could sustain 18% of 30-year rainfall. Now, you layer over that a major infrastructure project that wasn't going well at the time, but is now going very well and is nearing completion. And you had a disaster. Now, when we look at that lesson and we realize that some disasters are slow onset events, we understand the need for intergovernment cooperation. We understand the need for us to work together, for the left hand to know what the right hand is doing. It is why the government, through the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, is investing very heavily in data, real-time data. So our job through the Met Service is to ensure that they have the equipment to project what is likely to happen, to tell you what is currently happening. We have to ensure that Peter Clark and his team at the WRA has the ability to measure changes in hydrological flows, meaning, is the river breaking its banks? We don't need to hear that next month. We need to know what is happening today. And then the government needs to work in such a seamless way where Minister McKenzie's agencies have that information, and at the local government level, through the municipalities, through the varying agencies, are able to take action, are able to engage citizens to say, there is a problem we need to get out, or there is a problem you need to store water. Because that is when a seamless governmental response exists. And what I have seen over the last couple of years is that we have been moving much closer to that point. There is no country on earth that has 100% seamless response to disasters, whether disasters that happen in an instant or slow onset events. However, our government is ensuring that the information that informs strategy is indeed reliable, is indeed available to all of the agencies that must coordinate that response. In the issue of water, El Nino, during the period or the generation that we are now, which must face climate change, is not going to be easy. We're going to have serious challenges in dealing with water provision. We didn't develop in such a way where we built towns and cities around our largest sources of water. Invariably, because it was thought that we were the land of wood and water, we built where we wanted to because water was supposedly everywhere. No one evaluated, does this river carry a town of 30,000 people? Will it carry a city of 500,000 people? So what you have is a situation where 70% of Jamaicans live within 5 kilometers of the sea, pretty much scattered around the coast. Now, what does that mean? What does that risk look like? What does a disaster look like in this century? Well, in the era of climate change, it means we have to contend with sea level rise. When 70% of us live that close to the sea level rise is going to impact everything that we think about. It means we're going to have to do the coastal revetment project that I see taking place in Anata Bay on the way here. It means that we're going to see increasing saltwater intrusion in our wells, which we're seeing, right, Peter? Though more in the south coast, certainly in southern Clarendon. But we're going to see it as commonplace. It means those of us who are in agriculture are going to see deteriorating soil quality and reducing pollination rates, affecting your ability to reap what you sow. So we have those slow onset events to contend with. But because we're also so close to the ocean, it means the hurricanes that we speak of are going to affect us worse and worse than they have in the past. So we have real challenges, we have real vulnerabilities. But this government, and I want you to think of it as your government, is investing in ways that hasn't happened before. The first contemplation, the first thing that I want you to understand is that Jamaica has an investment program that is being looked at through the climatic lens. Jamaica in 2022 launched what we call Jamaica Systemic Risk Assessment Tool. It means Jamaica is analyzing every point of public infrastructure and looking at it through the climatic lens when we decide whether we're going to pave a road. So Minister McKenzie is going around this country right now to look at the Spark program. But we are looking at roads in terms of those that are also at greatest risk. So there is a component for the community roads, but there's a component that is looking at roads that are at risk. We're looking at our water systems. We're looking at our housing. We're looking at our public buildings. We have thousands of points of infrastructure that we're analyzing to see where is at greatest risk. We're also accepting that there is a risk, and it is why Minister Clark would have ensured that you have a disaster bond. If we have a catastrophe, we have the financial capacity to respond. What today shows is that we're also working together. You see the fire brigade, you see the police, you see ODPEM, you see WRA, you see the Met Service. It should tell you, citizens, that we're not leaving things to chance. So whether it is an event that happens in the blink of an eye, a fire, an earthquake, or certainly a hurricane that you might have a few days notice with, or whether it is like last year, the worst drought we've ever experienced, we are coordinating and working together. So we've built the financial capacity to respond. We're ensuring that we build the capacity within our agencies to have the information, to communicate that information, and to respond when there are challenges. Last year, we invested heavily in water trucks as a response to that drought. This year, we are investing in more water trucks. But I want to assure citizens that this year, we will have invested more in our distribution water network than any other year in the last 30 years in Jamaica, because we're building the resilience to the droughts that we're experiencing now and the droughts that we know will come. We are at risk from disaster every day as a small island developing state. But this government is prioritizing risk mitigation. It is prioritizing response that puts you at the center. It is ensuring that all ministries work together to ensure that we mitigate, but that when issues exist, the response is there. Portland isn't used to water challenges in the way that it faced it last year, in the way that it's facing it this year. The last point I'm going to make, Minister McKenzie, with your permission, is that it's all good when people hear about projects all across the country, but if they go home and they don't have water, they don't want to hear about that. So this year, we're investing $342 million in the Windsor Castle distribution system. We are in procurement for the Crystal Spring system in West Portland at a cost of 60.8 million Jamaican dollars. We will execute the Cascade section in West Portland for $19 million and the non-such system in Eastern Portland for $26.6 million. This is going to improve your lived experience in and out of disaster, but it is a critical investment in your water resilience to reduce the impact of disaster, certainly on water supply. Ladies and gentlemen, we could go on with the list of investments, but now is not the time for talking, it is the time for doing. And we're investing behind what we intend to do. Ladies and gentlemen, Minister McKenzie, thank you for the chance to speak to you this evening.
Thank you very much, Minister Samuda. And to the man who needs no introduction, the Honorable Desmond McKenzie will now make his address.
Thank you, Del. Colleague, Cabinet Minister, my friend, Matthew, His Worship, the Mayor, councillors, the CEO of a municipal corporation, Mr. Richard Thompson, Acting Director General of the Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, and his team, the Jamaica Fire Brigade, all the presenters, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. we intend to allow this town hall meeting give you more time to ask questions. So I won't be long in my presentation this evening. This town hall meeting is coming at a critical time as we approach the hurricane season. The Office of Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, which I must make the announcement tonight that early next week I'll be announcing the new board of the Office of Disaster and Emergency Management that will come into the chair of responsibility to help to guide the organization as we approach what the experts are predicting to be a very active hurricane season. But the people of Portland will appreciate that despite the various town hall meetings and all the various programs that the government can put in place, all of that will not materialize into any real success unless you, the people, buy in the program. I've been contemplating whether or not Jamaicans really believe that we are in the top 5 countries in the world that is prone to natural disaster. I don't know if the people of Portland also appreciate that Portland is in the top tier in Jamaica as one of the most disaster risk-prone parishes. And therefore, when we have town hall meetings of this nature and community meetings, we have these meetings to pass on information. And it is important that the information that is given, you go back to your communities. I'm expecting that your local representatives, your councillors, your members of parliament would also use some of what is discussed in these meetings to sensitize the various communities within their respective constituencies. This year, we have kick-started the preparation for the hurricane season. We have been having a number of workshops looking at the various aspects of the approach that we must take. And Portland stands out because the experts will tell you that you're not getting the amount of rains that you normally used to get 2-3 years ago. That rainfall has gone somewhere else. The experts will also tell you that you have been the center of 99.33% of all the earthquakes that we have had. And you listened to Anna earlier on, she spoke about where the fault line exists. Earthquake don't set up like rain. Don't make nobody fool you to tell you that there's an early warning system for earthquake. It no work, no go so. Even although there's a technology now that is on your phone, that technology can only tell you that there's an earthquake after the earthquake happens. But what it means, therefore, that we must appreciate the importance of being proactive. We were here a couple of weeks ago during the launch of the Earthquake Awareness Program, and we are back tonight. We'll be working closely with the municipal corporations to go into most of the communities with the message. The ministry will be working closely with the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation to coordinate a comprehensive program to put us in a state of readiness. But any state of readiness that we are going to roll out must include every single Jamaican. I heard the representative from Solid Waste spoke about the dumping of garbage in our drains and in our gullies. And I have to say it, and it's my nature to say what is on my mind. Coming into Port Antonio, I saw where some drain cleaning work was done. But guess what? What was taken out of the drain was placed on the sidewalk. And this is something that we have to rebel against. Because if we are going to ask you to follow us in being disciplined, then we must also demonstrate that level of discipline. And I have said to the mayor, I want it clean up. So I'm saying to you tonight that disposing of your garbage is also a contributing factor in our fight, in our mitigation fight against flooding. It is also important, ladies and gentlemen, that you heed the warning. So if you get a bulletin that says, this community is in danger of flooding out, don't say we are a God-blessed country. We are a God-blessed country. Remember, God protect those who protect themselves. And we have to become more responsible as Jamaicans. Because the world is changing. Look at the news, what is happening in the United States. The flooding in Brazil. All over the world. We are seeing scenes that we don't want to experience here in Jamaica. And I want to urge you tonight. This is the first in a series of town hall meetings that we'll be having across the country to urge Jamaicans to ensure that we become disaster preparedness responsible. And so tonight, the experts would have spoken on disaster. There are a couple other things I want to touch before we open the town hall meeting for questions. Tomorrow, I'll be breaking ground for the construction of a $52 million shelter for the homeless in Port Antonio tomorrow. The records have shown us that Portland, especially Port Antonio, have seen significant increase in the homeless population. I was here a couple months ago and met a young lady out at the bank. I turned up in St. Anne 2 weeks after and was the same young lady I saw. And what the experts are telling us is that there's a migration from town to town. And so the construction of this facility will provide a shelter for those who continue to live on the streets of Portland. And this facility will provide medical service, 3 meals, clothing, and a roof over their heads. There are 2 outstanding issues in Portland that I must address quickly. And that is the Buff Bay and Musgrave market. Work has commenced on the Buff Bay market. I want to encourage the vendors in Buff Bay. We're literally building a new market from scratch because the old building was torn down. We're building from the ground up. Again, we can't be spending this amount of money in putting in these facilities, and yet the vendors find it more prudent to be vending on the street. I have said to the mayor, as it relates to the Musgrave market, and I'm saying the same thing for the Buff Bay market, to engage the vendors from now. Because, trust me, I will come here myself and help to enforce public order so that the vendors understand that the markets have been repaired at their cost, your tax dollar. The Musgrave market, the drawings are completed. That market will become the first market that we are going to be building in Jamaica that is equipped with the latest necessary facilities to prevent fire, the Musgrave market. And once that is completed, ladies and gentlemen, I urge the residents of Portland, when these projects are completed, utilize the market. Our markets account for almost 85% of persons who use the market are females. Quite recently, we provided some funds to carry out some repairs to the public sanitary facilities in the market. Portland is on the path for further prosperity. The development of Portland is high on the agenda of the government of Prime Minister Andrew Holness. but we need the people of Portland to walk hand in hand with us to ensure that the various programs that are implemented, that you reap the benefits from these programs. This government has taken a bold step. The Most Honorable Prime Minister, a little over a year and a half ago, announced a game-changing program called the Spark program that is geared to deal with roads across Jamaica. The Spark program is designed to tackle community roads in the first phase. $40 billion. And let me say this since I have this audience and those out there in radio land who is listening to me. There are persons who are creating mischief, misinformation about the Spark program, saying that we do have no money to implement the program. That's a lie. Mischief they're making. The Spark program, we had the first consultation last week in Western St. Andrew, in the constituency of MP Anthony Hilton. And I must tell you tonight, I was pleased of what MP Hilton did in terms of how this program was conducted and the participation of the people in that constituency. This program will see you, the residents, when we come to Portland for the consultation, sitting in a forum just like this and telling us the roads that you feel is in need of repair. Once the consultation is done and we get the roads from you, it will be assessed. And one of the good things that has happened is that the work of the Ministry of Local Government and the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, that we now have a database of all the roads in Jamaica. So we can look at any road that we get in the consultation, and we can use the technology to look at the conditions of the roads. Ladies and gentlemen, never in the history of Jamaica has any government attempted what this government will be doing under the Spark program. I want to say to you tonight, do not allow false information to get into your heads. This program will see $20 billion being spent in the first phase of the program. And we're talking about community roads. And this program, we don't patch road in the Spark program. It's not a patching program. It is to rehabilitate roads. Putting down new roads with a lifespan of 7 to 8 years. Putting in drains, sidewalks, and all the necessary infrastructure that is required to make these roads acceptable. And this is a program that is going to be transparent. A program that all the necessary steps will be taken, and we have started already, to ensure that we get value for the work that is going to be done. So when the roads is scoped, it will be put out to tender. Local contractors, international contractors can tender on the job. There's an attempt being made to allow the fixing of roads in Jamaica to be taken out of the political squabble. There are no orange road or no green road in Jamaica. And that is why the people, you the residents, will have an opportunity in determining which road gets fixed. We can't fix all the roads. But over the next 2 years, in the first phase of this program, and this program will be able to stand the test of time, because anybody can audit the program. That is why when people ask, how did you come in determining which road to fix, we will be able to say, based on the consultation that was done, using the Constituency Development Fund in the Office of the Prime Minister, the Ministry of Local Government, and all the various stakeholders, that persons were able to articulate the concerns of their roads. I want to ask the people in Portland tonight, and right across Jamaica, to buy in and to support this program, because this is going to be a game-changing event for the people of Jamaica when it comes on to roads across this country, as far as community roads are concerned. There is no denying that this is a bold attempt by the Most Honorable Prime Minister. And this is not money that the government is borrowing to undertake this. It is because of the steady hands of the government, the manner in which the economy has been managed, while your tax dollar will be working to improve the conditions of community roads. For a small country like Jamaica, we have one of the highest road network in the world. As small as we are. We have about 25,000 kilometers of road network across the country. You can throw another 3,000 in there for farm roads. But the majority of those roads are community roads. And that is the aim of this program, to once and for all pay attention to community roads. Main roads will come in another phase of the program, but this is community roads. And let me make the point. The National Water Commission is a part of this working committee. So wherever we're going to fix a road or repair a road, the Water Commission will be given notice, and they will be able to say that this road is slated for pipe repair or the laying of pipes. So we're not just going to put down the road and then here comes Water Commission after to dig up the road. And that is why the program is as extensive as it is, because we have brought all the major players to the table. The other issue I want to say quickly is that the maintenance program that is done by the National Works Agency and the local authorities, Spark program don't affect that. So the municipal corporation will still have their work to do in carrying out repairs to roads, and the National Works Agency will also have their responsibility. Ladies and gentlemen, let us support this program because it will improve the economy, and once the economy is improved, the lives of many Jamaicans will improve. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister Desmond McKenzie. We're at the segment now where we're going to open the floor for question and answer. So I have just one brief point to make for clarification. The microphone in the aisle is what we are going to ask for you to use. We're asking that you state your name, yes, Minister, and where you're from. Say your name, where you're from. If you're not comfortable, fine, but we're family here, so we want to hear who you are and where you're from. So you can line up behind the mic. And one other point I'd like to make. Sometimes in these forums, we find that the stories before the questions tend to be long. We're going to ask that you make it succinct. Ask the question. Just get into it. Okay, thank you. And it's for the panelists. And we have in-house some state entities and other agencies that you may ask. So please go ahead.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. McKenzie, Mr. Samuda, hello, sir, I know my name. My name is Mrs. Pauline King Campbell from Craig Mill, Buff Bay, Portland. I am 69 years old. The bridge at Craig Mill, it's over 200 years old. And right now, as I speak, the little fund that Mr. Vaz built in the riverbed, it is in state right now. When I am in Portland, I live in Montego Bay and I live in Portland. I do all my business in Portland, just the same. I have to pay $500 for a mile and a half ride to go at my house. If the rain is falling right now around here, so they take the tractor and build back some of the debris that washed away from, you know, they fix it, they have to backfill it. So, Mr. McKenzie, I'm asking you, please, sir, that community, it's a farming community. Because of the state of the bridge, it's broken. How much longer we are going to wait for that bridge to be fixed? We need the bridge. We need the bridge like before the year even end.
Can we have live mics here, please? Thank you.
Earlier on today, at the municipal meeting, the councillor spoke to me about it. Okay?
Okay, sir.
All right.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Next person.
Good night. Good night.
Good evening.
My name is Lennox Brown, and I'm a community member born and bred in the parish of Portland. I have served my country for over 41 years. I was the first set of National Youth Service workers to have embarked on serving my country, Mr. Minister. My 2 points, in terms of the Forestry Act and the watershed management, is there any coalition between the two departments? Because see, as right now, as one is overlapping the next one in this parish of Portland. Forestry Act, or the Forestry Department, and the Watershed Management Act.
So Jamaica has the benefit, sorry to cut you, Jamaica has the benefit of having a new watersheds management policy in place. Now, that policy calls on a role from the agencies, including Forestry Department, Water, WRA, and NEPA. So there is an integrated management of our watersheds area, and it clearly outlines who takes what action as it relates to preservation, restoration, and when there's any breaches in your watersheds. Many of your forested areas are indeed watersheds. We're also in the process of developing a new Forestry Act, because the current Forestry Act is quite old, I think 60, 70 years old, and is in need of a new framework that deals with the fact that you've had much development, much has changed, as well as the current threats that we face are very different. So we're building a new legislative and regulatory framework that we believe modernizes these agencies and clearly explains how they interact. Ultimately, no area of Jamaica can be managed by one single agency. So we partner with the municipality, we partner with Forestry Department, we partner with NEPA.
Anyway, just one last question, or a point still. In 1963, when Jamaica had its independence celebration, the then Minister of Local Government, the Honorable Leopold Lynch, declared at a function that I attended as a youth that there was a parcel of land in Mansion Hill, Portland, that was acquired for building a fire station in Mansion Hill, Portland. And up to this date, we have not seen that fire station or anything like that come into existence. With the disasters preparing us, how can the fire station in Port Morant and in Port Antonio respond to a disaster when there is no fire station in Mansion Hill, Portland? Thank you.
I note your question. I note your question, okay? I note your question. I note your question. I will say no more on it. I don't know about the land that was donated by the late.
No, it was acquired.
All right, I don't know, but I've noted the question, okay? I've noted your question.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Marshall Kisoon, and I'm from Priestman's River. And I'm here to ask a question concerning our bridge. It is the highest bridge in Jamaica. Yet still, I don't feel safe on that bridge. Because from the very day we start to use that bridge, it has not been maintained. The rubber that's supposed to shock it up, shock out and gone somewhere. And underneath the bridge, it is very rusty bolts. And we talk about it many times, and yet still there is no repair that is done to the bridge. With the road that is fixing now, and the pipes that are going in, I want to know what will be done to the bridge and when.
All right, that is, we'll take note of it. I can't respond to that. I'll have to pass that on to the National Works Agency for you. I commit that I will do that, okay?
Thank you very much.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Simone. I'm Simone Ingleton. I want to find out what are the plans to deal with the salt water in the Ferry Hill Division.
So, thank you for that question. We're currently testing saltwater intrusion levels right across varying parishes and communities in Jamaica. One of the areas that is of particular focus is indeed the Ferry Hill Division. We are looking at a new water source potentially that would replace your current space. Now, this would likely be a well in that space. Now, that well is at an elevated level and would not face the same level of saltwater intrusion that you're currently experiencing in that space. But saltwater intrusion into our wells, certainly in Ferry Hill, in southern Clarendon, in places like Old Harbor is a real issue that we're facing. It means that there will come a time within our lifetime where there is some amount of desalination in how we supply our water. Now, we don't want to get to that point until we absolutely have to, because desalination uses very expensive electricity and a lot of electricity. So it will change the cost of our water supply. But the only solution to saltwater intrusion is indeed desalination. So we will use the sources that we can while we can, and whenever we get to that point where there is no other option but desalination, we will get there. But it will, when we get there, water will be more expensive than it is today. So you try and hold off and stay away from that as long as is humanly possible. Okay?
Good night. Sorry. I am Rupert Emmanuel Blair. I am in the party of the year in Portland. I want to ask certain questions about disaster preparedness. Well, Mr. Samuda, Desmond, McKenzie, Mr. That this question is, there is no vision. There is no vision to prepare parish. And the vision is, when you claim both road, water, draining. As we as a citizen, we need that vision to clear the road, water. We as a citizen, we are told the rubbish in the drain them. And when we throw the rubbish in the drain, we blame the government. Right? We blame the government. So when we blame the government, what we supposed to do? The government come clean it for us. So, remember in 1980 when Edward Sierra was the Prime Minister, when he had this program, then say, until those litter in the street. And when he implement that program, everybody pay 5,000 to clean the street. So we want to know to this government. What can I do to bring back these nasty people? Build the road. Someone to us. When you say we have a vision, we have no vision to be a place.
No, please. Please. I want you to withdraw that word, because I don't have anybody like that here or listening. Okay? That is not an appropriate word to use here tonight.
Yes.
Okay?
So, but man, those people live on this river bank, on the seaside. What we are going to do with those? But then on the river bank, the seaside, take out the resident, and then disaster occurred.
All right.
To live.
Okay, I hear you. And with all the issues that you have raised are issues that we are aware of, and we are taking steps. That is why we are having meetings such of this nature. Okay? Yes. To pass on and to encourage persons to heed the warning and to do better. Thank you for your question.
Okay, sir.
Okay. My
Good evening, everyone. Minister of Local Government, Honorable Desmond McKenzie, Senator Matthew, My question this evening is to ask that I hear the ladies that speak first pertaining to Belvedere, where the coconut tree was a disaster. Mr. McKenzie, I was in Whitehall that same time too. And Whitehall is next to Belvedere. And when the rain fall, it take the road. And what I want to let you know that proper draining is there, but it's just want to clean. So I'm asking if the national agency can go to Whitehall and clean the drain them, that the road, when the rain fall, it do not mash up the road.
All right, I hear you. Where is he? Okay, okay. We hear that. We have persons at the back who is listening and taking the information, and we're going to pass that on to the National Works Agency. Any more questions? If not,
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, should I say Portlanders, give yourselves a round of applause. So the formalities before we close, do we have the national anthem we can close with? Just a show of hand, thank you. So let me take the time to thank both ministers, Honorable Minister Desmond McKenzie and Honorable Minister Matthew Samuda for taking the time out. Additionally, His Worship Mayor Paul Thompson and Representative Shanique Green, who represented Ms. Vaz, and also all the presenters, Ron Brown, Peter Clark, Ryan Jarrett, and Ms. Fakuri, that is Anna, thank you. And also Anna Tucker Abrams and the rest of the team from ODPEM, Ms. Rickardson, and I see Michelle and Sophia and my DG Richard Thompson. Portlanders, thank you so much. I think we had a very interesting evening. And for all the entities that participated, I see Nationwide and National Solid Waste Management Authority, Jamaica Fire Brigade, and the rest of you. Have a wonderful evening and stay safe. Thanks a lot.